So, as a coach, your niche is into productivity.
Yeah.
Okay. And you just mentioned there was an initiative that you were running into habits. Can you tell us a little more?
Yeah, so that is something which is kind of now on the back burner since I started focusing on the certifications and the authoring aspect of the journey. So, but at that point we did run. So I started off with a habit challenge for 7 days where people would come in and, pick a habit and everyone would hold each other accountable and go through ways to make that habit stick. That moved into longer term what do you call it, longer term programs where it became a 6 weeks program. Then we had a 3 days program, and we had a 1 year program as well that just ran with every month we would pick one habit, focus on it, and everyone in the group would focus on building that one habit. Yeah.
This is something I would love to speak to you maybe in another session because, again, this is something which is going to be helpful in some of the things that I'm running in parallel and in addition
Yeah.
to my work. You're an NLP practitioner, you're a coach, and you're also an author. And authoring happened later. So, what
Yes.
prompted you to get into authoring, and what was the whole thought process behind it?
Okay, so authoring is the most recent thing that happened. Yeah. So I did launch my book this year at the Professional Speakers Summit in February. So this was conducted by Professional Speakers Association of India, from where we know each other also, right? So this PSAI is what made me write the book. Okay, so in 2022, we had a boot camp in Puri, which I attended.
Mm.
And in that, everybody there was, sharing, learning. It was a beautiful event. And there I saw everybody came holding their books and, everyone put it on display. And until that point, I had never felt like, oh, I could write a book. Like, I never believed I knew enough to write a book, or I didn't have it in me, kind of thing. And I was never resonating with the idea of I'm an author. So I just never gave it a thought. But at that Puri boot camp, people were like, oh, you should write a book, and there was a seed that why not? And we had one Mr. Kiruba Shankar, who is somebody I look up to a lot. So he gave me his book. He had autographed it, saying, "I will be the first one to buy your book," or "I can't wait for your first book." I don't remember the exact words, but it's on my LinkedIn. I had put a post about it. So that he signed that, and when I read it, I was like, "Huh." Like somebody told me I could write a book. It was literally like that, and I'm like, "Why not?" So that's where the entire seed got planted, and I did end up writing a book. Yeah.
So, that event and that person is your inspiration behind the book. Um,
Absolutely.
That is very interesting, right? Just a boot camp for a few days, and you go there and you get this idea and you chase it and you take it to completion and
Yes.
go through the whole process of that, which I can't even think how challenging
Yeah.
and how laborsome it may be. And you take it to completion and it's out in the stands. So, can you tell me a little about the whole authoring process, all the way from choosing the topic to that process to getting it published?
Yeah. So the first thing is the hardest thing, rather, in the entire process is to decide to do it. Right. So once I said, okay, I will write a book, then it was, of course, deciding the topic and what to write about. But I was very clear I wanted it to be around my niche, around my topic, that I am something that I know I can write about, and what I wanted to share my experiences of it. So, and that naturally came related to work. Right. And so that became my topic itself. And I just did some brainstorming, learned a little bit about how do people, write their books and things like that. But I kept it fairly simple, to be honest. And for me, the biggest thing is I'm not a writer. I never like writing. I am a speaker. Okay. And I speak. You ask me to speak on any topic, I can go on for hours. You ask me to write, I'll freeze after like a sentence or two. So that's my biggest challenge. So in my book also, I actually explore this, saying work with your strengths, work with what you are good at. Right. So I worked with speaking. So to be very honest, I did not write the book. I spoke the book. Yeah. So I actually recorded myself talking. So I had my talking points written down, like what do I want to say in this chapter, or, in this particular piece of the book. And I would actually just record it. into my phone. I had a voice recorder and I would just record it and let the internet and all the tools on it do the transcribing for me. And my book was written like that. Yeah.
Interesting. We do have more than one similarity out here. I would go on a walk and then, I had a flow of thoughts in my mind as to what should be the contents. And I really spoke
Yeah.
it out because that idea which comes to you at that point in time, you may never get back to that particular state of mind, those words, none of that. So you really, address it that way. So it's interesting that, how you chose the topic. Can you also tell us how the process worked? Every writer has got their own distinct journey. Can you tell us a little
Yeah.
more about the various steps involved, all the way from writing to to where it is right now?
Yeah. So for me, the first thing was okay, so I'm going to write about career. I didn't know the title or stuff like that, but I knew the word work has to be there in it because that is my niche that I work with. Yeah. It's also an acronym that I speak about on in my keynote and other places. So work had to be there. So I initially started off with, okay, you know what, I'll just do a big uh, list, like one page, one chapter kind of thing, and I'll do 101 do's and don'ts at work. That was literally where I started with. And then I just sat and listed down things that I felt like what I wanted to share from my work experience and from observing my clients and my colleagues and people around me at that point. I just made a list of things that I saw were very good, that things that people were doing right and the things that people were not doing so right and they should not have been doing that. So I made a list of all that. And then in general, this entire book for me was a very introspective process because I was also all over the place in terms of what is my message or what do I talk about and things like that. So this book kind of helped me put everything into one place and to structure it accordingly. So in the process, I kind of figured out my system of, okay, we need to build, a certain steps go one after the other to build a career. And how do you actually, more than building a career, it's more about gaining fulfillment in your career.
Hmm.
Right? It's about liking what you're doing, falling in love with it, and not burning yourself out in the process. Yeah. So the all those little bullet points then started, getting chunked into, okay, these things can be put together, these points can be put together, and they became individual chapters of the entire book. And once I had that, then I would actually sit and write down, okay, so if this was the chapter, what were all the points that I want to talk about or initial thoughts that came? I just dumped it. And like you, I did go on walks, and whenever I was on a walk, I got some idea, I would jot it down or record myself saying it. So it was very random initially. It looked like, okay, how am I ever going to finish this book? That was the phase it was in. But once I had the outline of the book in place, like, okay, this is going to be chapter one, this is going to be chapter two, and so on, that's when it became easier for me to record my talking points because I already knew what had to go in each chapter, what kind of stories or examples I wanted to use. I had all that in my mind. It was just a matter of sitting down or go for a walk and record it out. Yeah. And once that happened, then I transcribed, I did the editing, and then went with the publisher route. Yeah.
Okay. So you had your ideas put down and then you bucketed them into chapters, or did you have the flow of the chapters in mind and then elaborated on them?
So I had a flow like roughly in mind, like, okay, it should be like in this direction, but chunking them down into pieces kind of made sense because then I could break them down into separate chapters and things like that.
And did you do any research? I mean, did the book go through any research, or was it all culled out from your own experiences, or you have to contact back some of your ex-colleagues and
No, this came entirely from my experiences. So the book is my brainchild. So it's not that I've quoted other. Of course, there was some research involved where I did read about a bit. Like, okay, for example, if I felt like, okay, this particular thing is important to do, then I would research about, okay, is it really important? Was there some statistics or something around it? I did that a little bit, but not too much. But the book is majorly my experiences.
as in best strategies to handle a particular situation, that sort of research is what went into it?
No, those are things that I observed.
Hmm.
So the book is all about things that I saw some people do very well in the work, and they were actually very doing a good job. They were being very productive. They were being happy. I would notice this in some people, and I would have, incorporated that in the book, or even in myself. So if something I did that worked for me, I would have put that as a strategy in the book. Or if I saw somebody who was, stressing out, or they did not, have the right conversations in the right time and places, then those are the things I did make a note of in the book. Yeah.
Tried and tested strategies, you know.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Um, it's also interesting that you mentioned that you sat and edited. Did you have an editor or you completely edited yourself? And I also want to know, right now ChatGPT game is pretty strong. Do we need an external editor? Your thoughts on all of that?
Okay, so I did use ChatGPT to edit initially. So the transcription can be junk at times, right? Because certain words we pronounce differently. The transcriber, takes it differently. So instead of going through every word, I let ChatGPT do one round of cleanup for me. So I would put the transcription into ChatGPT and say, okay, can you correct if something is wrong? So it would do it, but there would still be some misses because that's not what I said, or that's not what was intended to show out. So I would actually redo it. So ChatGPT helped in making it simpler, but I wouldn't say we can depend on it entirely 100% right now. Yeah.
When I went through my process, ChatGPT was probably there, but I didn't know about it.
Yeah.
Mine was released in 2023 April. So I was definitely unaware of ChatGPT and to use it. And I've never used ChatGPT before that time. So I had to go through this whole editing process. And there are good editors. There are editors who make you do follow-ups. Um, did you ever have to actually run past your work with an editor who would do that for you?